Okay, so part 3 of long awaited, I guess, because it's been so damn busy with the move and everything. So, last we were talking about, I went through the Crucible, finished everything, and then at that point you're graduating from boot camp, and the transition from being a recruit to being a Marine, they give you about a week of it, which is really interesting. Immediately following the Crucible ceremony, basically you go get a shower, get cleaned off, send all your dirty gear to get cleaned, and then you're in nicely pressed uniform, you look the part of a Marine, and you go to what they call the Warrior's Breakfast, which is as much as you want of anything you want. And they take really good care of you. This is before I was a vegetarian, so I had steak and potatoes and donuts and whatever the hell else I wanted. And I did not eat nearly as much as I thought I would after the experience that I had. And the last week you spend out processing, much the way you would any other duty station, and we didn't know that at the time, where you have different places you have to be. You have to get cleared by medical, you have to get cleared by supply, you've got to get cleared by everyone else. You're giving back stuff that isn't yours that you get issued at each duty station. And you are out processing. Now, when that's all said and done, you've got your graduation ceremony, and as soon as you finish graduation, you'll grab your stuff and you're gone. That's it. So it was kind of an interesting build-up. I had been, at that point, writing my parents almost every day, and my then girlfriend, future wife, now ex-wife, pretty much every day. And letters really kept you going through all that. It was that one piece of being there that was only for you, which was really cool. And then also, sleep. People look forward to sleep because no one wanted anything out of you while you were asleep. You were asleep. It was good times. And the last night we were there, the night before graduation, I pulled guard watch, which is one of the few times I had to. I did it a few times in physical conditioning platoon, but I didn't pull fire watch a whole lot during training for whatever reason. But it just so happened at the end I pulled fire watch. So I did. And it was interesting, because the day before we had been given liberty, like time off. We went to the exchange and bought stuff, which was really weird. But then that's the thing they don't tell you, is that you're there for a minimum of 3 months. I at that point had been there for 4 months plus. So you have 4 months of pay sitting there. You got some money in your bank account. And I had money to spend for the first time in a very long time. So I spent it. I bought a couple CDs. I bought a portable CD player. One that I kept for about, I want to say close to, about not quite 5 years after that I hung on to it. It worked well, but it's just so odd to walk around and just be allowed to do what you want when you want after being regimented for so long. Walked around, and then you have graduation, and my parents and my, again, then girlfriend were down there for the ceremony, and we had rehearsed the march and everything else, and you're in your dress blues, and it's all very, very, a lot kind of wells up at that point, because you're like, this is it, and you don't realize that this is just one step in many on a career, but it was such a big deal for us. I walked up to my family and I saluted my father because he was a warrant officer in the Coast Guard, so he warranted a salute anyway. So I saluted him, and he and I, it was like instantly a lot of the tension we'd had for the years prior had all melted away. And we all got in the car and just started going. And I found that it felt like civilians were in slow motion. Like everywhere we went, I wanted to run. I felt like we were going too slowly. stop for a while. First morning that I slept in my parents' house on leave, they turned the lights on. I flipped out. Like, I leapt out of bed and I forgot where I was for a second. And they laughed, but it was a mild form of post-traumatic stress. I got over it, but it was there. Now, as far as leave goes, I think you automatically get 2-3 days or something to get there to your next training. Now, depending upon your military occupational specialty, you're either going to be going to the School of Infantry to learn to be infantry in 03, if you are infantry, or if you're any other job in the Marines, you're going through School of Infantry called MCT, Marine Combat Training, which is a condensed 3-week version of SOI. SOI is like 6 or 7 weeks or something like that. And that's that. Now, you can opt to take up to 2 weeks of leave in between, and I did, which was a mistake. A couple days would have been fine, but I wanted to be home for a while. I really shouldn't have. I should have gone home, been home for about 3-4 days, and then went down to training. And but I didn't. Instead, I was home for 2 whole weeks, and I ate too much. I didn't exercise, and it ended up biting me when I went down for training. I opted to take a bus down to the School of Infantry in Camp Lejeune, which from Pittsburgh to Camp Lejeune was like almost an entire day and night on a bus. In fact, it was an entire... I got on the bus at like 5 or 6 in the evening, and then we got there at like 4 o'clock the next day or something. And you get on with a bunch of different people, and anyone who's been on long-distance trips by bus can tell you they're boring. You're always kind of guarding your stuff. It just kind of sucks. We finally get there to Lejeune, and you're expected to report in your class A's, I think? Your Charlies? No, not your Charlies, I want to say that we were in our Charlies, which is the short sleeve shirt with the slacks, but I don't remember. It was either the Alphas, with the jacket, full blown, or the Charlies. I'm pretty sure it was the Charlies because of the doesn't matter. The point being, you show up in a relatively nice uniform and you report. But then you find out when you get there, like, they don't want you in uniform that long. They just want you to show up. And it's like boot camp all over again, except way less regimented. Like, they just don't have the science down, because they don't only do this there. And it took what seemed like forever. You finally get into your platoons for infantry training, and as you're showing up, especially if you've been on leave, people that you know are leaving, and they're like, ha ha ha, good luck. And you're like, what? So you get in there, and immediately the squad bay is completely different. Instead of, a steel bunk bed and a rickety old footlocker, you now get very nice bunks that have drawers all in there, and then you have a wall locker of your own. Very nice. You can store all your gear. It's all your stuff. And they tell you flat out, don't call us sir, call us by our rank. That's that. Don't do a salute bullshit. Like, they do a really good job of, like, snapping you out of what you thought you were supposed to be doing. When I was home, as a way of doing leave, I was doing recruiting duty. So I'd be, like, doing a day job of, like, 4 or 5 hours a day or whatever. And that was how I was justified to be on leave without taking up any vacation time. And so I'd gotten some relaxed version of the Marine Corps, and it worked out quite well. But you find yourself snapping into saying sir at inappropriate times just because that's what you're used to. And the same could be said for Marine combat training. You sergeant, you could tell these guys were somewhat hardened, very good at what they did, fighting men that were now being asked to train the next generation of fighting men and women forward. And this was the first time that we had been allowed to train with females in a mixed environment. I mean, they still had their own platoon for different reasons, but we all trained together. There was no sequester like there was in boot camp. So we all went out. It was 4 platoons. And right away, they're just, essentially, it's just class after class after class after class with lots and lots of humping. Just lots of walking, lots of marching, carrying ridiculous amounts of equipment. Because an infantry platoon, their whole goal in life is to shoot the shit out of anything that comes across, and you have to have certain weapons to do so. And I was lucky not to get stacked with anything too out of the ordinary. The whole reason that you're there is because in the event that all of your infantry is wiped out, they want you to be able to fight. So that's what they're teaching you how to do. And because I was intelligence, they said, well, you're going to take the radio, because that's what you would normally be doing anyway if you were in the field and not doing something more towards your billet. Okay, so I just got used to carrying a radio around, which it was a trend that would kind of follow as time went on. And it was good. And they said there's certain things you had to pack, and they said you could pack pretty much whatever you want, but they want you to kind of keep it simple. A lot of guys didn't do that. They'd pack cigarettes and chew and all kinds of extra food and whatever. And the longer you stayed out there, the more you realized that the more you took, the harder it became to keep your stuff in order, to stay organized. And, it all kind of blended together. Like, the memories that I have of that training, for me, really kind of, it amounted to what could be maybe a week, but I was there for 3. Which was so weird, because we were in the barracks for about 2 days. Then we went out in the field, and we came back for a day, not quite a full day, for Marine Corps birthday, which occurred while we were there. And then back out in the field, and we were back for like 2 days, and we left. So you figure 5, 6 of those days were eaten up by just getting back and forth and being in the field. So just over 2 weeks of actually being in the field on and off. Pardon me. You're doing day movement, you're doing night movement, you're learning every different kind of weapon, from 50 caliber machine guns to automatic grenade launchers. Yes, those are a thing. On Predator, the grenade launcher underneath the M16A2 he's got that shoots what looks like a large bullet. Battlefield, they use them. Call of Duty, they use them. Well, there's a Mark 249 automatic grenade launcher that shoots those in a belt fed. So it's like, but they actually like thunk, 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 thunk. Well, we learned how to shoot those, which was great. And we all agreed to shoot the same thing, trying to support this one part. Pretty cool. And more tracer stuff, and some really cool things that you experience. It's all the stuff that you read about, and you see movies about, and then you get to do it, and you're like, oh. So there's tons of moments like that in both boot camp and combat training. But it's still not glamorous. Like, it's very, this is how we do things, this is how it is done, this is how you save your life, more first aid, leadership training, whatever. There are a few stories pop out, so I'll tell a couple of them. There's one training, what they call field expedient equipment, and really what that is shorthand for, you don't have the actual piece of equipment that you need to do the job you need done. So how do you, using things you're going to have in your bag anyway, create that equipment? Like field expedient torch could be some toilet paper and a stick and a match. If you don't have, if your batteries run out in your flashlight or something like that, you don't always want to be using stuff like that. That's an extreme emergency kind of shit because fire attracts the enemy. Blah 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 blah. And then you go over, field expedient this, field expedient that, and this guy was really jovial. He was really funny. He was just very up. It was different from the whole like, all right, Marines, we're gonna coffee. We're gonna teach you how to shoot a rifle today. Them pussies in Paris on. Not like that. This guy was like, okay, we're gonna teach you field expedient this, and you're gonna be able to make the coolest shit in the fastest amount of time. Great jokes, whatever, and because you're going through with people that you, in many cases, know, and you're meeting new people. It's really interesting. You always have that one buddy you can laugh with, and I had a guy named Mike who I had seen in boot camp towards the end, did not realize he was there at the same time that I was. He actually was a fan in Pittsburgh of the band I had been in before joining the Marine Corps. So he was kind of like, oh wow, it's Jimmy from McGoss and stuff. It was really cool. Then we became friends and kind of became inseparable when we came back from boot camp, and then we went through combat training together. We just kind of linked up. It was really cool. He and I were just joking through this whole thing, and then the sergeant grabs a sandwich bag and a rubber band, and he puts the sandwich bag on his finger and puts the rubber band and he goes, what's this? Someone tell me what this is. And no one said anything, and he goes, right, field expedient condom, moving on. We were howling, and it was hilarious. I also remember when we did the night movements, all the different NCOs, non-commissioned officers, they had their own platoons, and they would compete to see who would get through faster. And it showed you the lighter side of the Marine Corps, what it's like to be a non-commissioned officer in charge of a repetitive billet, and also, frankly, that not everything has to be by the book. You have to get through however you can get through. So he said, there's very few times when you're going to not really have a map, when you're not going to know where things are. We're asking you to do stuff that you're just never going to have to do. Here's why it's important. Here's what you need to take away from this lesson. And by the way, your objective is here, here, and here. And you'd win. And then you'd still have learned the lesson, but not be running around in the dark like an idiot for 3-4 hours. And he's right, I never used that. I never did. So it was good. And then we went back for the Marine Corps birthday. There was a run, like the whole base did a run for the birthday. This is where the fatigue from being in the field, on top of my I was out of shape relative to everybody else. I was never a fast runner. I really struggled with it through all of boot camp. Perfect time on the 3 mile is 18 minutes in the Marine Corps. You have up to 28 to make it. My best times revolved around the 24-minute mark. I think the best I ever did might have been 23. And so when you take the fact that I'm already I'm far from the fastest guy out there, and I'm still not good at group runs. I was pretty good at them in boot camp, but I just was, after boot camp, I was never perfect at them. And we did one thing, I'm tired, I'm just not used to it. I was not a fast guy, never claimed to be. And I fell behind. And it was horrible. And you felt like shit because you didn't want to hold anybody up. But there were several of us that fell behind, and we did what we had to do to get through. But then you had a meal, and it was a good time, whatever, and you kind of had liberty and everything else. But and you go back in the field, and the next thing you know, you're doing essentially a war game with blanks and stuff like that. And you get to shoot at each other when nothing's coming out, and we had to dig a hole, literally dig a hole for hours that we could get into. And we spent our sweet time in there, and we sleep standing up, what have you, and just get through it. And patrolling and stuff. Again, things that you're really not going to have to do. But it was fun. It really was fun. And then the last few days, like I think 3 days, I think we were out of the field. We took turns going to the exchange and going to chow when we wanted to go to chow. Just kind of relaxing. Just really relaxing back in the field. They didn't let you smoke, but they kind of turned the other cheek when you were turned to liberty and stuff. Like, when we first got back, the sergeant put all the smokers in one room. We all smoked in this laundry room, and then opened the window and let the smoke kind of billow out. Because he didn't feel like it was right for everyone to not be able to smoke. I remember meeting a female Marine that I, at the time, thought was very attractive and a lot of fun. Then I realized she was chewing a huge chunk of tobacco, and she spit. And I suddenly realized it was the most unattractive thing I'd ever heard of. Like, at no point was I so desperate for a cigarette that I wanted to chew. And that's remained true to this day. I've never done nicotine gum or anything like that. I either was smoking or I wasn't. Unless it was like an e-cigarette or something like that. But it was so weird to me that people would do that. I realized I'm jumping around. Went to the exchange thinking, okay, I'm going to my first school. I'm going to be there for almost a year. I'm going to need some stuff. So I bought certain things. I bought a big travel bag. Big green travel bag with the embroidered Marine Corps emblem on the side, the eagle and anchor. And I used that anytime I had any kind of traveling to do. For the entire time I was in the Marines. And then once I got out of the Marine Corps, that became a secondary hardware bag for my drum set, which I still have. It's been 14 years I've had that bag, and it has lasted this whole time. I bought a black laptop bag, which I still have. I didn't have a laptop at the time, but I had a laptop bag. Still use it. All the time. For various things. Took what CDs I had, and books, whatever, and got ready to go to the airport. Went to the airport, waited around, got in the flight, had a couple drinks on the flight, and showed up really late. And in the dark, they kind of show you to your room, and you're asleep. And suddenly, I realized, holy shit, I'm in fucking Florida, and I'm supposed to be learning how to be a signals intelligence officer. I'm like, what the fuck is this crazy trip that I'm on? So you figure, if you go from part 1 to now, I was essentially homeless, broke, and alone. And in the span of 10 months, I was United States Marine, basic trained, combat trained, and about to learn about the nuances of collecting intelligence on enemies of the United States. And I'd lost about 80 pounds. And I had a girlfriend. And my parents and I had patched things up. Pretty amazing transformation. So, and I thought I had everything wired, but that was not the case, as we will find out in the next part of our story. I think that when it comes to A school, I'm going to do that in 2 parts, because a lot happened. So, I will, spoiler alert, I do get married during that time, so we're going to go pre-wedding and post-wedding. Alright, so part 4 is going to be part 1 of A School for Signals Intelligence. So, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing. Happy Easter if you celebrate, and happy Sunday if you don't. Keep on grinding, guys. Cheers.